25 black Hollywood actors who are drunk all the time. Hollywood shines bright with red carpets, flashing cameras, and million-dollar smiles. But behind that golden glow hides a much darker truth. Some of the most beloved black stars, the same faces that once lit up our screens, were secretly drowning in addiction. Fame brought them fortune, but it also brought temptation, loneliness, and pain that no spotlight could hide. From comedy legends who made us laugh to soulful singers who made us cry, many fought silent battles with alcohol that nearly destroyed everything they built. These aren't just tales of glamour and fame. They're stories of struggle, collapse, and the long road to redemption. So, get ready to uncover the untold stories Hollywood tried to forget. Don't blink, because what you're about to hear will change the way you see these legends forever. You're watching Hidden Black Legends. Hit that subscribe button, and let's begin. Dennis Rodman. Dennis Rodman. They called him the Worm, a nickname that barely scratched the surface of the chaos, genius, and raw emotion that defined Dennis Rodman. On the court, he was a force of nature, diving, clawing, and rebounding with a hunger few could match. He wasn't just part of the Chicago Bulls dynasty of the 1990s. He was its wild heartbeat, the unpredictable energy that turned defense into art. But off the court, Rodman's life spun like a storm. His battles with alcohol became front-page news, overshadowing the brilliance that made him a legend. In 1999, an arrest for public drunkenness painted yet another tabloid picture of a man at war with himself. The charges were dropped, but the truth ran deeper. Friends said the real fight wasn't with the law. It was with the bottle, the loneliness, and the weight of fame. There were nights when his friends had to physically stop him from drinking, nights when his demons nearly won. Still, through all the chaos, Rodman refused to break. He reinvented himself. Wrestler, actor, reality TV star, an unfiltered symbol of rebellion and resilience. Beneath the wild hair and tattoos was a man searching for balance, for peace, for himself. Today, at 64, Dennis Rodman remains one of sport's most polarizing figures, a mix of brilliance and controversy, pain and perseverance. His story is a reminder that greatness can dazzle the world, even when the soul behind it is still fighting to stay standing. Samuel L. Jackson. Samuel L. Jackson stands as one of Hollywood's most commanding and versatile icons, a man whose voice alone can silence a room and electrify a scene. With unforgettable performances in Pulp Fiction, The Avengers, and Django Unchained, he's carved out a legacy few can rival. But behind that confident swagger and signature glare lies a story of survival few ever knew. Before fame found him, Jackson was fighting an invisible battle, one that nearly ended his career before it began. In the late 1970s, after moving to New York City with his wife, LaTanya Richardson, he hustled through the theater circuit, taking whatever roles he could find to support his young family. But as bills piled up and pressures mounted, he sought comfort in alcohol and drugs, a dangerous escape that slowly consumed him. By the early 1980s, addiction had its claws deep in him. Friends and family, terrified by what they saw, staged an intervention. Jackson later confessed that he feared sobriety would rob him of his edge, that without the drugs, he'd lose his spark. But when he entered rehab, he discovered the opposite. Clarity sharpened his creativity. That newfound focus led to a breakout role in Spike Lee's Jungle Fever, 1991, where he played a crack addict, a hauntingly authentic performance drawn from his own painful past. The irony wasn't lost on him. The demons that once threatened to destroy him had, in a twist of fate, fueled his artistic rebirth. Now at 76, Samuel L. Jackson stands as living proof that resilience can rewrite destiny. His journey from addiction to cinematic greatness isn't just a story of recovery. It's a masterclass in redemption, discipline, and the unbreakable power of the human spirit. Jamie Foxx, a man of talent, triumph, and turmoil. Jamie Foxx stands as one of the most gifted entertainers of his generation. An Oscar-winning actor, a Grammy-winning musician, and a comedian whose wit can slice through any room. But behind that effortless charm and golden smile lies a story of struggle, resilience, and redemption. In his early years in Hollywood, Fox battled private demons that few could imagine. The glitz of fame often hid the weight he carried inside. Insecurity, stress, and the haunting memory of a teenage incident when someone spiked his drink with a powerful drug. That experience left scars deeper than anyone knew, shaping a complicated relationship with alcohol that would shadow him for years. As the pressure of fame mounted, Fox found temporary escape in alcohol, a mask for pain he couldn't yet name. But rather than let those vices destroy him, he confronted them. He sought help, turned inward, and learned to balance his mind and soul without the crutch of substances. Then came The Rise. His portrayal of Ray Charles in Ray, 2004, earned him an Academy Award and immortalized his place in film history. From Collateral to Django Unchained, his performances prove that true artistry isn't born from perfection, but from perseverance. Now, at 57, Jamie Foxx isn't just admired for his talent. He's respected for his honesty. He's living proof that confronting your past doesn't weaken you. It defines your strength. His journey reminds fans everywhere that even the brightest stars can stumble. But what matters most is how they rise again. Wendy Williams. Wendy Williams. Few names in modern entertainment embody fearlessness quite like hers. From her early days as a radio shock jock who said what others wouldn't dare, to becoming the unfiltered queen of daytime talk, Wendy turned gossip into gold. With her signature catchphrase, "How you doing?" she didn't just start conversations, she owned them. But behind the wigs, wit, and whirlwind of celebrity headlines, Wendy was quietly fighting her own battles. Addiction, to alcohol, to drugs, to the pressures of fame, shadowed her rise. In rare moments of honesty, Wendy called herself a functioning addict, juggling her talk show empire by day and her personal chaos by night. Her life became a loop of performance, parties, and pain, running on little more than willpower and caffeine. Everyone watched the show, she once said, but no one saw the struggle. By 2018, the mask cracked. After a relapse, Wendy courageously entered a sober living facility and shared her story with the world. That moment, raw, vulnerable, unapologetically real, shocked some, but inspired millions. It reminded fans that even the loudest voices can cry in silence. Though the Wendy Williams show ended in 2022, her legacy endures, not just as a trailblazer who redefined celebrity media, but as a woman who dared to show her scars. At 61, Wendy Williams stands as proof that resilience isn't about perfection. It's about the power to rise again and again, even when the spotlight fades. Chaka Khan, the queen who fought her way back to the throne. Chaka Khan, the undisputed queen of funk, has spent decades igniting stages with her electrifying voice and timeless anthems like "I'm Every Woman" and "Ain't Nobody." Her music didn't just top charts, it defined eras, blending soul, funk, and fire into pure magic. Yet, behind the spotlight and sequins, Chaka's journey was far from a fairy tale. At the peak of her fame in the 1970s and 1980s, the demands of stardom, endless tours, studio sessions, and media pressure became unbearable. To numb the chaos, she turned to alcohol and drugs. What began as an escape soon became a chain. Her powerful voice, once a symbol of freedom, was slowly slipping away. "I couldn't even focus on music anymore," she once confessed, a heartbreaking admission for a woman born to sing. Her turning point came through an unexpected lifeline, a heartfelt conversation with fellow soul legend Etta James. Etta's words, raw, real, and filled with love, reminded Chaka that it wasn't too late to reclaim her story. That moment of sisterhood changed everything. With courage and faith, Chaka entered recovery, confronting her demons and rebuilding her life from the inside out. Today, at 72, she still commands the stage with the same fire that first made the world fall in love with her. But now, her voice carries something deeper: survival, gratitude, and wisdom. Chaka Khan's legacy isn't just about music, it's about triumph. She proved that even when darkness threatens to silence the brightest voices, resilience, truth, and love can bring the music back to life. Queen Latifah, the power, the pain, and the comeback. Queen Latifah, born Dana Elaine Owens, is more than just an entertainer. She's a force of nature. A pioneer who shattered barriers in hip-hop, stole hearts in films like Set It Off in Chicago, and built an empire as an actress, producer, and entrepreneur. Her confidence and empowering lyrics made her the voice of strength for millions, especially for women who saw themselves in her bold defiance and authenticity. But behind the bright smile and the crown of confidence lay a storm she rarely showed. In 1992, tragedy struck when her beloved brother, Lancelot Jr., a police officer and her best friend, was killed in a motorcycle accident. The loss shattered her world. To escape the pain, Latifah turned to alcohol and drugs, masking heartbreak with self-destruction. 10 years later, in 2002, her grief resurfaced in a public way when she was arrested for possession of marijuana and a firearm, a moment that exposed the private struggles beneath her public image. That arrest became her turning point. Instead of letting tragedy define her, Latifah faced her demons head-on. She embraced sobriety, poured her energy into her art, and began to heal. Through resilience and raw honesty, she rebuilt herself, not as the woman who fell, but as the queen who rose again. Today, at 55, Queen Latifah remains a powerhouse of strength, grace, and reinvention. Her story reminds the world that even icons stumble, but real power lies in the comeback. Kid Cudi, the poet of pain and healing. Born Scott Ramon Seguro Mescudi, Kid Cudi burst onto the scene in the late 2000s as the voice of a generation drifting through darkness. With haunting hits like Day and Night and Pursuit of Happiness, he spoke for millions who felt misunderstood. Lonely souls searching for purpose in a world that often forgot them. His raw honesty became his superpower, but it also exposed the shadows he was fighting within himself. By 2010, those inner battles boiled over. Cudi was arrested in New York City for drug possession, a public fall that mirrored the private chaos he'd long tried to numb. Later, he admitted that he'd been using drugs and alcohol just to silence the noise in his mind. But unlike many stars who hide behind the spotlight, Cudi turned his pain into poetry. His music became a confessional, a soundtrack of survival. In 2011, he made a choice that would redefine his life. He gave up hard drugs, tattooed his wrists as a symbol of rebirth, and began channeling his struggle into messages of self-love and recovery. Sobriety didn't just clear his mind, it opened his soul. Now, at 41, Kid Cudi stands as more than a rapper or producer. He's a beacon of hope for those lost in their own battles. His journey reminds us that even in the darkest nights, there's always a song waiting to guide us toward the light. Jada Pinkett Smith, from chaos to clarity. Jada Pinkett Smith's story is one of transformation, raw, honest, and deeply human. She's not just an actress or a talk show host. She's a force who's turned her pain into purpose. From her breakout role in The Nutty Professor to her fierce performances in the Matrix films, Jada has always commanded attention on screen. But it's her unfiltered candor off-screen that truly defines her. Through Red Table Talk, she invited the world into her most vulnerable spaces, confronting trauma, addiction, and healing head-on. Jada once admitted that in her youth, she prided herself on being able to drink anyone under the table. But that pride masked a growing darkness. During the filming of The Nutty Professor, she collapsed in her makeup trailer after taking what she thought was ecstasy. That terrifying moment shattered the illusion of control and forced her to face the truth. She was spiraling. Instead of hiding, Jada chose to rise. She embraced sobriety and used her platform to speak about recovery and resilience. Not as a celebrity preaching from a pedestal, but as a survivor extending a hand. Her openness has inspired countless others to confront their own battles without shame. Now, At 54, Jada Pinkett Smith stands as living proof that confronting your past doesn't weaken you. It refines you. Her journey reminds us that true strength isn't about perfection. It's about the courage to heal in public and turn brokenness into brilliance. Oprah Winfrey, the power of vulnerability and triumph. Oprah Winfrey stands among the most influential women on earth, a media titan, philanthropist, and the legendary host of The Oprah Winfrey Show, which captivated millions for 25 groundbreaking years. Her rise from a poverty-stricken childhood in rural Mississippi to becoming the undisputed queen of all media is a story that continues to inspire generations. But behind the success and the spotlight lies a moment of raw truth that revealed Oprah's most human side. In 1995, during one of her most unforgettable broadcasts, Oprah made a confession that stunned the world. She admitted that in her 20s, she had experimented with crack cocaine during one of the darkest chapters of her life. It wasn't fame or curiosity that led her there. It was love. A toxic relationship had dragged her into self-destruction. Yet, in true Oprah fashion, she transformed her pain into purpose. Her revelation wasn't about sensationalism. It was about healing. By exposing her deepest wounds on national television, Oprah extended her hand to those silently suffering, letting them know they weren't alone. She turned vulnerability into strength, shame into empowerment, and personal struggle into a public lesson about compassion and recovery. Today at 71, Oprah continues to inspire through her network, her book club, and her countless acts of charity. Her legacy reminds us that greatness isn't about perfection. It's about authenticity. Admitting your flaws doesn't make you weaker. It makes you real. And in Oprah's case, that honesty made her unforgettable. Richard Pryor, the fire that burned within. Richard Pryor wasn't just a comedian. He was a revolution wrapped in laughter. His voice cut through America's polite silence, dragging uncomfortable truths about race, pain, and survival right into the spotlight. Every joke was a confession, every punchline a scar from a life lived on the edge. But behind the brilliance was a man haunted by demons. Pryor's rise in the 1970s came with a dark shadow, an unrelenting battle with drugs and alcohol. In 1980, at the height of his fame, tragedy struck. After hours of freebasing cocaine and drinking rum, Pryor accidentally set himself ablaze. He ran down the streets of Los Angeles engulfed in flames, a living symbol of self-destruction and survival. Miraculously, he lived, spending 6 painful weeks in recovery, his body scarred but his spirit unbroken. The world saw a man nearly consumed by his own fire. Pryor saw something else material. Out of the ashes, he turned his trauma into timeless art, confronting addiction, fear, and truth with raw honesty that few dared to touch. His comedy wasn't just funny. It was human, fearless, and painfully real. Even as multiple sclerosis slowly weakened him in later years, Pryor never lost that spark, the one that made him both a legend and a mirror to our flaws. When he passed away in 2005 at age 65, the world didn't just lose a comedian. It lost a truth-teller who proved that laughter could come from the darkest places. Richard Pryor's legacy isn't just about the jokes he told. It's about the courage it took to tell them. Martin Lawrence. Martin Lawrence wasn't just funny. He was electric. With that wild charisma and lightning-fast timing, he ruled the 90s, lighting up screens in Martin, Bad Boys, and Big Mama's House. Every joke, every expression, every outburst became a piece of pop culture. But while the world laughed, Lawrence was fighting battles few ever saw. Behind the fame came chaos, stress, exhaustion, and the dark pull of alcohol and drugs. During the filming of A Thin Line Between Love and Hate in 1996, his emotional collapse on set made headlines. Erratic moments followed: arrests, public outbursts, hospitalizations. The tabloids mocked what they couldn't understand. The pain of a man trying to hold himself together while the spotlight burned hotter than ever. But Martin didn't stay down. He got help, faced his demons, and fought his way back. He owned his mistakes, took accountability, and rebuilt not just his career, but his peace. Reuniting with Will Smith for Bad Boys sequels proved he still had that magic spark. Now in his 60s, Martin Lawrence stands as both legend and survivor. His story is more than comedy, it's resilience. A reminder that even the people who make us laugh the hardest often carry the heaviest pain behind the curtain. Mike Tyson, the rise, the rage, and the redemption. Mike Tyson's name doesn't just belong in the record books. It's carved into the very soul of boxing history. At just 20 years old, he became the youngest heavyweight champion the world had ever seen, a ferocious storm of speed, power, and precision. When Tyson stepped into the ring, fear followed. His fists didn't just knock opponents down. They sent shockwaves through the sport itself. But behind the roar of the crowd was a man drowning in silence. Raised in the brutal streets of Brooklyn, Tyson's path was carved through pain, loss, and survival. Under the guidance of trainer Cus D'Amato, the father figure he never had, he found purpose and discipline. Yet when Cus passed away, the anchor that held Tyson steady was gone, and his life began to spiral. Fame brought fortune, but also chaos. A turbulent marriage to actress Robin Givens, legal troubles, and the dark pull of addiction toward his spirit. Tyson later confessed that he was a vicious alcoholic, lying to everyone, including himself, about sobriety. It begs the question, do we celebrate champions for their strength in public, while ignoring how deeply they bleed in private? Tyson lost millions, friendships, and years of his prime, but he never lost the will to fight. From prison to comeback bouts, from self-destruction to self-reflection, he clawed his way back. His stage show Undisputed Truth and appearances in The Hangover revealed a different Tyson. Raw, funny, broken, and reborn. Now at 59, he speaks with a calm that once seemed impossible. He talks of faith, family, and balance, the battles no referee can see. Because Mike Tyson's greatest fight was never in the ring. It was within himself, and against all odds, he's still standing. Naomi Campbell, the rise, the fall, and the rebirth of a legend. Naomi Campbell isn't just a supermodel, she's an era. Born in London, she conquered the catwalks of Paris, Milan, and New York, redefining what beauty looked like. With her piercing gaze and commanding walk, Naomi became the first black woman to grace the cover of French Vogue in 1988 and Time magazine in 1991, a feat that shattered industry barriers and changed fashion forever. But behind the flashbulbs and fame, Naomi was fighting battles the cameras never saw. By the mid-1990s, the glitter began to fade. The relentless pressure of fame collided with heartbreak, and after the tragic 1997 murder of her dear friend, designer Gianni Versace, Naomi's world cracked. Grief drove her deeper into a storm of drugs and alcohol, a dangerous escape that often led her right back to the pain she was trying to forget. She would later confess that alcohol wasn't her true addiction. It was control, the illusion of power in a world built to break her. But by 2004, Naomi chose to fight back. Through therapy, faith, and sheer willpower, she found her way to lasting sobriety and began using her platform to speak openly about recovery, resilience, and redemption. Today, at 55, Naomi Campbell remains a force, still walking runways, raising her voice for diversity, and proving that true icons don't just rise, they rise again. Her story isn't just about beauty or fame. It's about survival, grace, and the power to turn pain into purpose. Redd Foxx, the king of comedy and chaos. Redd Foxx, born John Elroy Sanford, was more than a comedian. He was a revolution in a tuxedo and a punchline. Long before Sanford & Son made him a TV legend, Foxx ruled the underground comedy scene with his infamous party records, the kind you had to hide from your parents but couldn't stop laughing at. With razor-sharp timing, fearless humor, and a voice that cut through hypocrisy, he shattered barriers for black comedians and reshaped mainstream television in the 1970s. Audiences adored his wit, his swagger, and his outrageous one-liners. But behind the laughter was a man living on the edge. Fox's life offstage was a wild mix of brilliance and self-destruction. Broken marriages, mounting debts, and constant battles with alcohol and drugs. He never tried to hide it. In fact, he turned his vices into punchlines, once joking that he got so drunk he mistook the sink for a toilet. In Hollywood, it was no secret that he dabbled in drugs, even wearing a tiny spoon on a chain around his neck, a bold statement in an era when such habits were whispered about, not flaunted. Yet, through every scandal and setback, Fox's comedic genius never dimmed. His timing remained impeccable, his presence magnetic, but the same wild energy that fueled his success also consumed him. On October 11th, 1991, while rehearsing for his comeback series The Royal Family, Red Fox collapsed from a fatal heart attack. He was 68. His legacy remains bittersweet. A trailblazer who broke color lines and censorship rules alike, and a reminder that sometimes the funniest people carry the heaviest pain behind the curtain. Tracy Morgan, laughter, pain, and a second chance at life. Tracy Morgan has been making the world laugh for decades. His voice and timing as unmistakable as his larger-than-life personality. From his wild days on Saturday Night Live to his iconic role as Tracy Jordan on 30 Rock, Morgan's comedy has always been a mix of chaos, honesty, and heart. But behind those roaring punchlines hid a man fighting battles few ever saw. In 1996, Morgan was diagnosed with diabetes, a silent storm that grew worse as he turned to alcohol to escape the pressures of fame. What began as a coping mechanism soon became a destructive spiral, costing him his marriage and nearly his life. The laughter on stage masked the pain behind the curtain. By 2010, his health hit a breaking point. Years of neglect caught up with him, forcing doctors to perform a kidney transplant that would change everything. That near-death experience became his wake-up call. He got sober, rebuilt his body, and began mending the relationships he'd lost. Today, at 56, Tracy Morgan stands not just as a comedian, but as a survivor. He continues to perform, inspire, and remind the world that even the funniest souls can hide the deepest wounds. His story is proof that resilience, humility, and the courage to change can turn tragedy into triumph and pain into purpose. Charlie Murphy, the man behind the laughter. Charlie Murphy may have walked in the shadow of his legendary younger brother, Eddie Murphy, but he carried a light all his own, raw, fearless, and unforgettable. His razor-sharp wit and outrageous storytelling on Chappelle's show turned true Hollywood stories about Rick James and Prince into instant classics, making him a cult hero in comedy. But before the fame, Charlie's life was a storm, marked by chaos, bad decisions, and the rough streets of Brooklyn. As a teenager, he flirted with danger, drugs, alcohol, and street fights that nearly cost him everything. He even landed in trouble with the law, facing a robbery charge that led to probation. Yet, out of that turmoil, a no-nonsense, brutally honest man was forged. Charlie would later admit that those years nearly destroyed him, but they also gave him the stories, the grit, and the voice that would one day make the world laugh. Comedy became his salvation. Beyond Chappelle's show, he wrote scripts, starred in films, and toured the country as a stand-up powerhouse, proof that his talent was far greater than any comparison to his brother. And though addiction didn't define his later years, the scars of his early battles never completely faded. When Charlie Murphy passed away in 2017 at just 57, after a brave fight with leukemia, he left behind more than laughter. He left truth. His legacy is one of resilience, redemption, and realness. A reminder that the funniest people often come from the darkest places, and somehow still find a way to make us smile. Sidney Poitier, the man who changed Hollywood forever. Sidney Poitier wasn't just an actor. He was a revolution in motion. A man whose presence on screen shattered racial barriers and redefined what it meant to be a black performer in Hollywood. From Lilies of the Field to Guess Who's Coming to Dinner and In the Heat of the Night, Poitier's performances didn't just earn applause, they earned history. In 1964, he became the first black man to win the Academy Award for Best Actor, a moment that changed cinema and civil rights forever. With his unshakable dignity, calm strength, and moral conviction, Poitier became more than a movie star. He became a symbol of hope and integrity in an era of social upheaval. Yet behind the spotlight and the accolades, he was human too. In his memoir, The Measure of a Man, Poitier revealed the loneliness and cultural shock he faced upon arriving in America. Caught between worlds, he turned briefly to alcohol to numb the pain, until he realized that escape wasn't freedom. Choosing discipline over despair, Poitier made a bold decision to live with purpose. He gave up alcohol, red meat, milk, and sugar, dedicating himself to health, balance, and longevity. That commitment carried him through decades of triumphs and trials, both on and off the screen. When Sidney Poitier passed away in January 2022 at the age of 94, the world didn't just lose an actor, it lost a moral compass, a bridge between art and activism. His life remains a testament to the power of grace, resilience, and unwavering principle. Proof that true greatness isn't just found in fame, but in the courage to live with integrity. Denzel Washington, the power of purpose and discipline. Denzel Washington isn't just an actor, he's a force of nature. With unforgettable performances in Malcolm X, Training Day, and Fences, he carved his name deep into Hollywood's history books. His presence on screen is electric, a blend of intensity, focus, and quiet authority that commands respect both in front of and behind the camera. For decades, Washington has been the gold standard of professionalism, a man whose craft is defined by precision and purpose. But even a legend has private battles. In his 60s, Denzel made a choice that revealed the depth of his self-awareness. He quit drinking altogether. There's no public scandal, no downfall, just a realization. When you're toasted, he once said, "You need a day to recover." That's 2 days out of your life. For a man who values every second, that was time he refused to waste. It wasn't about weakness, it was about strength. Washington's decision to step away from alcohol wasn't a fight against chaos, but a declaration of control. It was the kind of quiet discipline that separates good from great and great from legendary. He's often said that true success isn't built on talent alone, but on sacrifice, clarity, and purpose. Now in his 70s, Denzel Washington still stands tall, not just as a cinematic icon, but as a man who proves that the greatest victories are the ones fought within. His story reminds us that discipline isn't a restriction. It's freedom, the power to live every day with intention. Clifford T.I. Harris. Clifford T.I. Harris isn't just a rapper. He's a Southern legend, a cultural force, and a man who's walked through fire and come out wiser. Known to millions as the King of the South, T.I. rose to fame with chart-topping anthems like Whatever You Like and Live Your Life, cementing his place as one of hip-hop's most influential voices. Beyond the mic, he proved his versatility in acclaimed films like ATL and American Gangster, building a brand that blended music, business, and Hollywood charm. But behind the spotlight, T.I.'s journey wasn't without shadows. Fame brought pressure, pain, and a dangerous escape: drugs and alcohol. After serving time in 2010 on federal weapons charges, he opened up about how addiction had quietly taken hold, not as a thrill, but as a refuge from trauma and expectation. It wasn't about partying, he once confessed. It was about surviving. His honesty exposed the hidden cost of success, how even the strongest voices can drown in silence. The turning point came through an unexpected ally, Eminem. Having faced his own battles with addiction, Eminem urged T.I. to get help. Their heart-to-heart talks sparked a transformation. With renewed purpose, T.I. chose healing over hiding, redirecting his energy toward family, business, and giving back. Today, at 44, Clifford Harris stands not just as a hip-hop icon, but as a survivor, proof that redemption is real and that true strength comes not from perfection, but from the courage to rebuild after you fall. Billy Dee Williams. Billy Dee Williams, the very definition of suave. To millions, he'll forever be remembered as Lando Calrissian, the smooth-talking gambler who stole hearts in Star Wars. The Empire Strikes Back, 1980, and Return of the Jedi, 1983. But long before lightsabers and space battles, Williams had already carved his name in Hollywood history. His journey began on Broadway in the 1960s, where his rich voice and magnetic presence set him apart. From his breakout performance in Brian's Song to his elegance in Mahogany alongside Diana Ross, Billy brought style, grace, and quiet power to every role. At a time when black actors were rarely offered leading parts, Williams stood tall, becoming a symbol of sophistication and pride for an entire generation. Yet, behind that easy charm lay moments of doubt and struggle. In the turbulent 1960s, he experimented with hallucinogens, a decision he later said helped him confront his fears, his identity, and his place in an industry that often tried to box him in. Unlike many of his peers, he avoided heavier drugs, choosing instead to ground himself through art and introspection. Over time, Billy learned the art of balance. He mastered discipline, stayed true to his craft, and turned resilience into an art form. His portrayal of Lando didn't just break barriers. It redefined what a black hero could look like: confident, intelligent, effortlessly cool. Now, at 88, Billy D. Williams is more than an actor. He's a painter, a poet, and a living testament to endurance. His life reminds us that true style isn't about fame or flash. It's about grace under pressure, self-discovery, and the courage to keep creating long after the spotlight fades. Flip Wilson, the hidden price of laughter. Flip Wilson wasn't just funny, he was revolutionary. In the early 1970s, the Flip Wilson Show shattered barriers, making him the first African-American to host a hit network variety show. His razor-sharp timing, unforgettable characters, especially the sassy Geraldine Jones, and his effortless charm made America laugh every week. 2 Emmy Awards, a Golden Globe, and sky-high ratings crowned him one of Hollywood's highest-paid stars. But behind that million-dollar smile was a man quietly fighting demons. The fame, the pressure, the loneliness, all drove Wilson toward alcohol and drugs. In 1981, his troubles became public when he was detained at Los Angeles International Airport for cocaine and hashish oil possession. Though the charges were later dismissed because of an illegal search, the damage was done. The world saw the cracks behind the laughter. For Flip, the substances weren't about glamour. They were survival. Being a trailblazer in a world that didn't always welcome him came with invisible scars. He kept performing through the 1980s and 1990s, but the spotlight had dimmed. His charm remained, but his health declined. In 1998, at just 64, Flip Wilson passed away from liver cancer. His story is bittersweet, a man who made millions laugh while quietly suffering inside. It reminds us that even legends, even the ones who seem untouchable, often battle the darkest storms when the lights go out. So we ask you, should we remember them for their flaws, or honor them for their courage to keep shining despite them? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget, you're watching Hidden Black Legends.